Once upon a time, in a small, isolated town on the edge of a dark forest, there was a mysterious old house. The locals whispered about the house, believed that it was haunted by the spirit. Legend had it that no one who entered the house was ever seen again. One stormy night, a group of curious teenagers decided to investigate its cause and the existence of a haunted house. Armed with flashlights and trembling with anticipation, they cautiously entered the creaking front door. As they ventured deeper into the house, strange sounds resounded in the corridors and eerie shadows danced on the walls. Suddenly one of the teenagers summoned a blood-curdling scream with him. The others rushed to find their friend, only to find themselves frozen in fear as they stared at the ghostly figure in the corner of the room. The ghostly girl of a child, a teenage face contorted with anger and sadness. Terrified, the other teens tried to escape, but the doors and windows mysteriously closed. Panic seized them as they realized that they had been trapped by a vengeful spirit. The spectral figure began to approach, and its ethereal presence made them shiver. In a desperate attempt to escape, the teenagers looked for a way out. They stumbled upon a hidden place in the basement, made sacred artifacts and a dusty book. As they frantically turned the pages, a ritual that could exorcise a ghostly spirit. Trembling, they followed the guidance, reciting the incantation with all their might. The room fills with a blinding light, and the ghostly person emits a blood-curdling scream from itself. When the lights went out, the teens found themselves outside the house, safe but forever changed by this encounter. From that day on, the haunted house stood empty, reminiscent of a chilling memory of terrible ordeal. The legend of the vengeful spirit continued to haunt the city as a warning to those who dared to venture into the unknown. Remember, it's just a fictional story, but it's always important to be cautious about unfamiliar and helpful situations. Second story. In a small, forgotten village nestled deep within the woods, there was a dilapidated mansion that had long been abandoned. Locals whispered tales of a malevolent spirit that haunted the halls, known as the Wailing Widow. Legend had it that she was a woman who had tragically lost her husband and child, and her sorrow had bound her spirit to the mansion. One stormy night, a group of paranormal investigators decided to explore the infamous mansion, determined to uncover the truth behind the haunting. Armed with cameras, audio recorders, and their courage, they ventured into the decaying building. As they stepped inside, a bone-chilling coldness enveloped them, and the air grew heavy with an eerie silence. The investigators cautiously made their way through the dimly lit rooms, their footsteps echoing through the empty corridors. Suddenly, a mournful wail pierced the silence, sending shivers down their spines. They followed the sound, their hearts pounding with anticipation. The wailing grew louder and more desperate, leading them to a room at the end of a long hallway. Inside the room, they discovered a dusty old crib, swaying back and forth as if rocked by an invisible hand. The wailing intensified, filling the room with an overwhelming sense of grief. The investigators realized they were in the presence of the Wailing Widow herself. Terrified but determined, they set up their equipment, hoping to capture evidence of the ghostly presence. As they began their investigation, objects flew across the room, disembodied voices whispered in their ears, and chilling apparitions appeared before their eyes. The investigators felt a deep sadness and empathy for the Wailing Widow, understanding the pain that bound her spirit to the mansion. They decided to conduct a séance, attempting to communicate with her and offer solace. During the séance, the room filled with an otherworldly energy. The Wailing Widow's cries transformed into mournful sobs, and her presence became more tangible. Through a series of messages, they learned that she was trapped in a cycle of grief and couldn't find peace. With compassion, the investigators guided the Wailing Widow towards acceptance and release. They performed a ritual to help her cross over to the other side, bidding her farewell as her spirit finally found peace. From that day on, the mansion stood silent and still, no longer haunted by the tormented spirit. The villagers whispered stories of the brave investigators who had helped the wailing widow find her way home, a tale that served as a reminder of the power of compassion and understanding. Remember, this is just a fictional story. But it's always important to approach ghostly encounters with respect and empathy, should you ever encounter such phenomena.